Interesting conversation going on here, and Karl Rove is now responding to critics after coming under some fire for his new political action committee. Several conservatives have claimed that Rove is supporting mainstream Republicans over Tea Party candidates, but Rove came out fighting on this last night with Sean Hannity. He says what he wants is to get the best Republicans elected. Take a look.
Our object is not to be for the establishment, it's to be for the most conservative candidate who could win. And if we were involved in 2009 and 10 in primaries, I would suspect that we would have been involved on behalf of Marco Rubio because he was the most conservative candidate who could win.
Very interesting stuff going on here. Joined by Alan Colmes, host of the Alan Colmes radio show, Tucker Carlson, editor of the Daily Caller and a Fox News contributor. Tucker, what do you think about this whole back and forth with Karl Rove?
Well, there's an awful lot of tension between the grassroots and the establishment in the Republican Party. The grassroots believe the establishment is ideologically corrupt. They don't really mean it. They're not actually conservative. And, of course, that's true. And the establishment thinks the grassroots are crazy and they're putting up mediocre candidates. And there's some truth in that. I think the bottom line truth is it's not about whether you're conservative or liberal. It's if you can't speak English correctly, if you can't make the case and win people to your side, you're not going to win election. If you can't, for example, attack abortion without appearing to endorse rape, you shouldn't be in politics. Go sell vinyl siding or do something useful with your life, but you're meant to be in politics. So it's not a question of who's conservative, who's liberal. It's a question of who's articulate.
But Tucker, you know, I mean, what Karl was saying last night is that his group, American Crossroads, supported candidates that were considered Tea Party candidates. They supported candidates that were considered conservative candidates. So he thinks that this whole hubbub about him, you know, sort of eschewing the Tea Party for the establishment is bunk.
Yeah, I think he's got a really good point. They did support an awful lot of conservative candidates. Look, the Republican Party, for a bunch of different reasons, isn't apparently strong enough to weed out the poor candidates in the primary. So groups like Karl's filled the void. I mean, somebody's got to be, to some extent, a gatekeeper keeping morons from running for office. No offense or anything, but if you can't speak English, you're not going to win an election. It's just that simple.
Alan loves it when morons run for Republican office. It makes him very happy, right, Alan?
I'm not even needed for this segment, but the fact is, look, I want conservatives who can't win. That's really what I want. I want conservatives who make comments like, God intended if women get raped that the baby should be born.
Oh, we really don't need to hear that
no, seriously, but the point, just to pick up on what Tucker said, I think Tucker and I probably agree that Karl is saying, he clearly said, we want the most conservative candidate who can win. That makes a lot of sense. It's being pragmatic.
And that's what is known as the William F. Buckley rule, to root for the conservative who has the best chance of winning and who is the most conservative. You know, I mean, where do you think this goes from here, Tucker, this conversation? Does it get Republicans to a better place where they do win more elections? Because that's clearly what they want.
Well, there's just a lot to shake out here, it seems to me. I mean, there is still a hangover, and no one says it out loud or very rarely, but frankly from the Bush years. I mean, an awful lot of conservatives, the Republican primary electorate, believes they were kind of sold down the river in some ways by the Bush administration. Not always, but they're upset about the prescription drug benefit. They're upset about the growth of government, the lack of fiscal restraint. And so there is this battle going on, mostly behind the scenes, between the people who basically are still in charge of the party and the people who are actually coming out to vote. And I think this will not be settled until there is a broad consensus among Republicans on what they stand for. What does it mean to be a Republican? What do you believe when you're a Republican?
And it seems like that message, and we heard this from Governor Bob McDonnell, we heard it from Eric Cantor, that the articulation of conservatism has really gone by the wayside, and that the message, Alan, and you know, I think that in many ways Democrats have been able to successfully demonize Republicans as being out of touch and not caring about the best outcome for the country on the whole.
I don't think Republicans need any help from Democrats to be demonized. I think they did it all on their own. But look what happened to Mitt Romney. He had to twist himself into a pretzel to try to appeal to a constituency which he never appealed to as governor of Massachusetts, try to be something he really wasn't, which ultimately hurt him because he had no credibility. We never knew what he stood for because he was trying to be whatever he thought the Republican Party needed to win a primary and
which is always a mistake. Which is always a mistake. But, you know, I honestly believe that both sides really do want the best for the country. They just have very different ways about how you get there.
True.
One side believes that, you know, that the government is the best route to helping people, and the other side believes that people, on their own volition, are the best answer.
I don't believe that Democrats automatically think government's always the best way to help people, but I think we have a probably more benign view of government than conservatives do, and that government can be a force for good, where there are those on the other side who think government is always the evil. So I wouldn't generally state government's always the answer.
That's a dramatic overstatement. But I would just say, just to be totally clear, fielding candidates who can make the case it's not the same as fielding liberal candidates. You can field strong ideological conservatives and still win. They just have to be able to talk.
Very low bar. Tucker, thank you.
Thank you.